Tēnā koutou. Lovely to have you back in the room. Hopefully everyone's satiated, had a chance to have a great catch up with each other and are ready to come back in to reconvene with this next session. We're in for a treat. We've got 4 wonderful speakers lined up. I'll introduce them in due course. We're going to think about how we communicate care through comms, basically, how we care through comms, and each of our speakers are going to take a different approach to how this might happen based on their own research and practice. So we'll have time for questions at the end. We won't take them during the seminars or the presentations themselves. If you can keep those in mind for when we get to the end, we'll definitely make time to have those. So the first speaker we have is Georgie Craw. Thanks, Georgie. Georgie is a historian and she has worked for the Waitangi Tribunal. She's previously been Executive Officer at Child Poverty Action Group, and she's currently the Wellbeing Economies Alliance Communication Lead. So I'll pass over to you, Georgie, and you're going to talk about using values-based narratives to communicate for systems change. Thanks, Georgie.
Thank you. It's such an honour to be up here, and I'm really glad to be sharing it with these wonderful wahine as well. So yeah, kia ora koutou, ko Georgie Craw taku ingoa. I'm from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance Aotearoa, and as we say, the topic today is kind of using values-based messaging for systems change, and I'm trying to make it as kind of practical as possible, like a little insight into what we do. But you know, this is kind of, put it quite simply, it's like, what is this? It's how to not bum people out when we're talking about like the need for change. Like, so we can talk about the meta crisis, the poly crisis. We can kind of chuckle that at people, but we want them to be able to like act from a place where they can take action rather than just feel very unsure about the world. And so just really quickly, and I want to mihi to Sharon, who's in the audience, who I just found out is actually has worked at the workshop, which a lot of this research comes from. And when Bex told me, I was like, oh no, I wish you'd told me afterwards, because now when okay, yeah. So to me, what values-based messaging is in a nutshell, it's kind of like, it's a way of communicating with people that aims to connect with them by appealing to your core values, you know, rather than just kind of presenting facts and figures. And so when it's done well, it can help people when they're presented with new information to just slow down their thinking and look to the kind of systemic drivers that are pushing whatever the issue is at hand, and it can help them act, it can help them do something. And so I've got this very scientific graph, which is here. Right, this is me, and maybe this is you, but like just swinging wildly between these two like polar opposites of feeling like, yes, a better world is possible, or oh my god, we're so screwed. And I think, and we were talking about this in the group that I was part of with like grieving, that there is a place for feeling like, oh my god, we're so screwed, but we need more places where we can do that together in a really embodied way or whatever. And I kind of am thinking of Joanna Macy and that kind of deep ecology process of being able to do that grieving together. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm kind of here to talk about the broad messages that we're sending out into the world, where people maybe have never really even thought that the economy is like relevant to them or anything like that. So what do we say that helps us move people into a space where they feel like, yes, a better world is possible? And it's like what you were saying, Kelly, with like that amazement of reading Joan Tronto for the first time. There is an alternative. It's so empowering. So that's what we're talking about. So before I do that, just a quick kind of who we are. So We All Aotearoa is a Te Tiriti-led, non-partisan think and do tank working to redesign our economy around the well-being of people in Te Taiao. We are part of a global alliance, and so we have hubs in 17 countries. And counting, which is quite cool. And we define a wellbeing economy as an economy designed to serve people and the planet and not the other way around. Okay, so why does this matter? Like, why is it important what we say? So, like we're already talking about, these kind of dominant narratives are like the water that we're swimming in, and they can really shape what people feel is possible and how we can act. So you see this everywhere, and I think especially in politics. Far-right politicians are really good at kind of activating and triggering feelings of, fear or resentment. which shifts how people think, and we're trying to do the opposite of that. Oh, sorry. We're really trying to surface pro-social values, which help us, like I say, slow down and look at things through a different lens. And so for me, the real kind of value of this type of communication is that it helps us lift our gazes to see those systemic upstream causes. And just a quick note, I think the care economy as a frame is already, or the caring economies as a frame is a powerful starting point for this kind of communication, because right at the beginning you're putting, a value of care centre in the whatever story or narrative that we're talking about. And I think it's really helpful when we contrast kind of this school with something like degrowth, which, I believe in degrowth. I think that's the way we need to go personally. The Wellbeing Economy Alliance doesn't talk about that so much because it's so much harder to communicate to the general public about that idea, because you kind of automatically run headlong into this, Sharon's nodding, which is, thank you. You run headlong into the barrier, that dominant narrative which is out there. It's like economic growth, GDP growth is the way that we prosper. And when you say, actually, we need to degrow our economy, people are just they're scared of that idea. It doesn't make sense. Absolutely not. So, we want the general public to be questioning that need for uncritical economic growth, but we're not going to jump straight into something like degrowth. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, let's talk about some of the other dominant unhelpful narratives that we're up against. And so two of the most common, and I should say, I've missed a slide, but I do want to mihi to the workshop. I've already done that, but I missed a slide. Yeah, so this comes from some research from them. It's a narrative briefing paper, and I've got it at the end, and I can send it to anyone. So two of the most common narratives about the economy that are out there is that it's like a machine. And so it's a machine, it's ticking away somewhere else, it's got unchangeable formulas, but they're scientific and they are true. And the other one, which kind of is hard to reconcile, but is that the economy is a force of nature. And so in both of those narratives, it's the economy is seen as something that is just beyond our control. It is like that, and there's nothing we can do to change it. But these kinds of narratives hide the choices that people have made, both in the past and in the present, that shape our economy, that make it how it is. So, an example of that is the kind of dominant narratives make it really hard to see how colonialism continues to create wealth for some and poverty for others. Another dominant frame is the bucket economy, where the kind of national economy is seen as a container that people put resources money into, and take money out of. And so obviously in that narrative, all other types of work and contribution are ignored and not valued. And it's also kind of sees the economy as something that's really closed. So you're not meant to take, in this kind of narrative, in this lens, you're not meant to take out more than you put in. You're not seen as a good citizen if you do that. So those are some of the narratives that we're really up against. But it's not all bad news. There are actually some helpful mindsets, maybe not narratives so much, but mindsets that we can tap into. So the research has shown that actually when you get down to it, most people value community over individualism. They also value nature more than money, in terms of money is, we do believe on the whole that money is just an ends to a means to an end, sorry. And people also understand that the status quo isn't working, which means that they're open to change if we can communicate that in kind of a helpful and credible way. So how do we do that? What are some of the helpful narratives? I've just got time to kind of very whirlwind go through three, and this is probably my favourite one. So it's the economy is a product of design and it can be redesigned. And if that's kind of our one message that we're pushing at the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, it is a product of design. It's not an unchangeable natural force or a machine. It's a product of design and it can be redesigned. And I love it because most people have never heard of it before and it's actually really empowering. And there's kind of a little beauty to it. I think it kind of opens up a little gap in people's minds of oh, if it's a product of design, we can change it, but it should be a good design. What can it look like? And then from that point, you can kind of begin to talk about how the economy that we design, the good economy that we could design, should serve us and not the other way around. We don't have to be in a service, we don't have to be in service to an economy that is harming all the things that we kind of love and care about. The second one is a public good narrative, and we use this one quite a lot. And in this narrative, you define economic success as an economy that meets everyone's needs and can create, so people can live meaningful and fulfilling lives. And I think it's really, this one's quite good at shifting our focus away from that kind of endless, uncritical growth idea towards, getting people to talk about the role that our public institutions can have in caring for people in the environment. And then the third one is a strengths-based narrative. And this really highlights the strengths that we already have, especially in our communities, and it highlights what's already been done to kind of centre economies, around economies that are centred around wellbeing. And then also because you're talking about like the strengths that people hold or that we hold in our communities, and you're emphasising human actions, it really avoids that kind of fatalistic narrative that I was mentioning at the beginning, that this is just how the economy is. So this narrative comes from the workshop, and we can all contribute and be in service to our communities by sharing what we have, our skills and experiences. Our democracy is stronger and our economy is healthier when there's room for everyone to take part. And I didn't have quite enough time, but this one kind of leads into the idea of economic democracies. Like people need to be able to feel that our economy does actually reflect our values. So it really plays into this idea that we were kind of talking about before, but don't have enough time really. But this is the briefing paper, and I'd really recommend people take a look at it. I can email it to you if you like, but it's available on our website. And kia ora koutou, that's my email address. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. Wonderful timing. Sorry, I was trying to make eye contact with you there, but you were all over it. I didn't have to worry in the slightest. Thank you so much. The really provocative thoughts there about how we might rethink and open up the brain space to rethink what the economy might be and could be going forward. Delighted to introduce my colleague, Deanna Haami. Deanna works with me on a project we got some funding for last year. I might talk about it a little bit in the next session, but she's a wonderful colleague to have on board in the project, looking at how low-income families are managing with non-standard labour and how they basically cope with their home life, the care life, and their sort of social reproductive lives that has to happen in and around this kind of challenging work. And Deanna, myself, and Mary, who's down there as well, have worked together quite closely. Deanna is soon to be a newly minted PhD in the School of Psychology any day now. Very well earned, and we're much looking forward to celebrating that with her. Deanna is going to talk to us today about her doctoral research, and the title we've got for Deanna's work this afternoon is Storying Realities and Visual Methodology. So I'll pass over to you, Deanna. I don't know if you'd like to stand here or sit down, but I'll pass over to you.
Thank you for the applause. And thank you for reminding me what my title was. I'm pretty sure I kept it quite broad to give myself wiggle room. But I am talking about my PhD and about how I came, well, kind of. I guess it'll be easier to just do it. And then you guys will kind of get a sense of what I came to during that. But as my PhD was on intergenerational trauma, but on my own, understanding my own experiences of trauma, why my childhood was the way that it was, and how it was passed down to me through the generations. So on that journey, even though the way I communicate now is about how to communicate that journey, when I was going through the journey, I was just reflecting on this actually. Using art and storytelling, it was my way of processing. It was my way of caring for myself, because I needed to get it out. I needed to express it. And now I've gone to the point where I use it to then communicate to others about that journey. And I was just talking over the lunchtime, and a couple of mahi waira practitioners who I love, they've been really good teachers to me over the last few years. They tell me a lot, actually, that my life is a koha to others. And so that's what this has become, what my PhD is. It was for me, and now it's a koha to others. So I'm just going to tell a story And I will get to my slide before we start. There we go. Oh, no, not there we go. I pressed the button. Oh, thank you. So I'll tell a story and then see what happens afterwards. This is the story of Hinengaro. She is the keeper of the seeds that were passed down to her. These were the seeds that made me, her mum whispered in her ear as she placed the seeds in her little hands. Keep them safe and nourish them. Never let them go. Her father came next. These are the seeds that made me, he said as he added them to the pile in her hands. Keep them safe, water them every day. Never let them go. She kept those seeds so close to her that over time they became a part of her, embedding themselves into her being. They first took root in her head, and as they grew, she could hear voices speaking into her mind. At first, the voices were quiet, barely a whisper in her head. She couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but she knew that they were there. As she grew, so did the voices, growing louder each and every day. Over time, she realised the voices were echoing what those around her were saying. The screaming from her mum telling her that she was useless, that she wasn't good enough, that she wished she was never born. The voice of her dad, though, never showed up. A deathly silence is all that was there. The silence of the seeds he gave her, a reminder of her unworthiness, that she wasn't enough to keep him there. She looked at the rest of the seeds in her hands and said, "So this is how I make you grow. The voices around me will nurture you even more, and I will never be alone." Then she placed the rest of the seeds on top of her head, doing as her parents said. If these seeds become a part of me, she thought, I am doing what I was told. I'll bury them deep in my mind and never let them go. That little girl grew up, and each day those seeds too grew more and more. The roots wrapped around her brain, her throat, her heart, diving deep into her soul. The stories the voices narrated travelled throughout her being on repeat. They were told. The voices told her brain to hate herself. The pain was all she was worth. That home wasn't a safe place to be anymore, to run away from the hurt. The voices told her heart that she wasn't loved, that she belonged in the dirt. The voices told her throat to be quiet, don't speak. It's not safe to make a sound. No one cares what you have to say anyway. Keep your words bottled down. Years went by, sweeping past in a flash, and suddenly Hinengaro had grown into a woman, and all those seeds had bloomed. She was now surrounded by thorns and vines, held down in a dark cocoon. She looked all around, and all she saw was darkness. Darkness was all she knew. She had spent so long away from her body, listened to the voice of the seed as it spoke into her mind, that by the time she came back, years had already passed by. She looked around her, and black was all she could see. Her feelings were no longer even there. No emotions, no thoughts of her own, no idea how she had even gotten here. This must be how life is supposed to be, she told herself. So I won't move from here. Day by day, this is how she lived in darkness, surrounded by the plants she had nourished from seeds, now her confidants, her greatest friends, closer to her than family. One day, though, she opened her eyes and noticed something different about the dark. There was a speck sitting there beyond her cocoon, peeking through the gaps. A bright whiteness she hadn't seen in a long time. It sparkled at her, teasing her, telling her to come take a look, to reach out for it and grab it and see how it could change her world. She waited and watched, wondering if it would simply go away if she pretended it wasn't there. Try as she might, though, she couldn't ignore it. It was just too bright to bear. So she sat up and moved the branches and vines out of her way, intent on making that light disappear. Not knowing that those first steps beyond that cocoon would be her last time there, that they would one day disintegrate, return to the earth to be transformed into new life, that to make that little bright light disappear, she would flood the world, her world, with light, and instead it would be the darkness that would leave, with not a single trace left in sight. I just need a break. I always find it, I have gotten to a point where I can, tell these stories, and it's still quite a caring activity for me. and expressing it. I'm feeling like I'm being too casual right now, but I'm just going to talk, and we'll see what comes out. I was reflecting a bit on care and what that actually means, and a lot of it for me, in order to survive from the caring for myself, there was a lot of dissociation. And that can be viewed as something not great to do, but it helped me to live. It helped me to survive. So that was an act of care for me. And my understanding of care, what it meant to be cared for, was informed by my world around me, by my parents, by my family. But then as I got older, the wider world, especially when you start recognising what it means to be Māori in this space. And it's like, what is care? If I'm not receiving care from these spaces around me, how do you give care to yourself? And that informed how I understood love for myself. And I just didn't. I didn't love myself. I didn't know what that was. And so it's interesting, I guess, how this morning has informed. It's like I'm just reflecting more on care in my own personal worlds and what that actually looks like, how it manifests in your everyday lived reality and lived experience of it. And care for me was surviving. It was just surviving because I didn't know anything else. And I think, in telling, I guess when we're trying to get it back to the actual point, when we're communicating research and communicating what it's about, when you're taking someone's stories, it's important to remember the life in them, the tears in them, the blood in them. It's what's in there. How do I make sure that when I'm going out with this responsibility, going out there and I'm doing justice to it, I'm honouring the sacredness within it. And then I think, through telling those stories and honouring the sacredness in it and make sure that you can capture that power within it, you can reach the hearts. Because I do find that storytelling in this way, it gets to the heart. And you get to the heart, and I believe you can change the mind, you can change a lot. And so, that's where I've come to. That was just a random wānanga. But yes, thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Incredibly powerful and really affecting to hear you. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm sure it doesn't get any easier, but it is a gift that you have and you want to share with us, and we receive that, and we thank you for taking the time with us to share that today. I thought it was interesting how the idea of care for self sometimes means disassociating from things, which seems to have come across a little bit in both talks this morning so far. So really interesting. Anyway, I'm holding up other people's time. Next up, we have Swarnima Kriti. Thank you, Swarnima. Swarnima is a PhD student working with Kelly on our Transitioning to Caring Economies project. Swarnima is working on her PhD, which is looking at the role of care and commoning in post-development practice using 2 case studies, one here in New Zealand and one in India. I'll pass over to you, Swarnima.
Thank you. Thank you, Deanna. I think first, just sharing what you shared, and I think in this presentation, I think you kind of set a background for my presentation too, because I'm working with a group of girls who have similar but still different experiences, and we'll see how that goes. So hello everyone, I'm Swarnima, like I said, and today I'm going to share a story of how art became a way of caring in 2 villages in central India. And so where did it all start? As part of my MPhil action research work in 2016, I went for a fieldwork in a village called Mardapoti, and I had to stay there for approximately 10 to 12 months. And in the first 2 months, when I was working with women's self-help groups, these women came to me and they said that in some discussions that we're having a water problem. And I was like, okay, water problem, let's work towards it. But what is this water problem again? Is it infrastructural? Is it, what is it exactly? And then what I did was, to understand what this water problem was, I organized an exercise for the youth in the village. And I asked them to paint anything that represented water for them. And all these young women painted women carrying water, like you can see. And men in the village painted water as aesthetic, nature, not relating to labor. So then I also realized out of the discussions that it was not easy for women and girls to talk about water as a labor question out in the open. And I realized art was one way of getting this in the open space. Now we did, as part of my action research, end up scripting a play and hint towards division of labor in the village and perform that play in front of everyone. But I think in the process something changed in me and I did not leave after my MPhil. I stayed back and I continued working. I continued working with a group of girls there, and this group later called themselves Chinhari in 2018, and Chinhari meant to leave a mark. And for them that was very relevant at that point of time, that we want to do something, we want to leave a mark. So as I continued my action research, it was COVID hit, and in 2020 we know that it was lockdown. And in the village, we had expanded to another village called Dokal, and the situations were not very good. The lockdown, these are communities where there was everyday wage labor, and these are physically active communities who had to be locked up in their houses. Not very good for their mental health. And things were not turning out quite well in the households. And therefore, in that moment, I think Chinhari asked, what can we do for each other? Because we can't meet in person. And in that time, there was one girl who started painting, and somehow everybody else followed. And that was like we were painting in our houses, but we were painting together. It was finding continuum in isolation. And that was how we held each other. Now the girls continued to paint, and after some time, they kind of looked at painting as expression, as representation, and it was like inner introspection of who are we. And if you look at the slide, you'll see that side talks about how the village life is. And these are girls who at one point of time thought their voices, their world, their surroundings, their culture didn't matter, are not things that people are interested in, but that changed into that. And that's what they do. They have a lake next to their village, and that's how they play. That's how they celebrate the tattooing system in their culture. And then to the right side is how girls also imagined what is the philosophy of their way of life, which I always get inspired by these two paintings where they, it's the plant world, animal world, human world, they're all interconnected. And as if this one represents how flourishing the world around us will be how flourishing we are, how joyous we are, and how joyous the world around us is. And this is how they represent female friendships and women's collectives, that we may have fragments in us, but we are not fragmented. We come together and we complete each other. So that's how they kind of said that we mattered and we're important. And I think that changed something in them. And that was in, I think, the same time when COVID was happening, schools were closed, and the girls started teaching the children in the village because, of course, it was lockdown. They had to help the process of education. And over the time, over 3-4 years, they realized that there's something that they had to do with education, and that they had to include their culture, their idea, their relationship with nature into it. And in January 2025, they inaugurated an open learning center called Hamar Srijanshala, which meant our abode of creative learning. And they brought education learning, I would say more, learning to their culture and nature. And they used art and play to do it. So one of the instances, or one of the stories that I'll bring in is they do Pola. Pola is a festival where they celebrate the bullocks for their job in agriculture. And people make and decorate mud bullocks. But that's something that was fading now. So what the girls did was to reignite their childhood memories. They thought, let's get the kids together. And that's how they brought them together, got the mud together. They're making all the bullocks and the other toys. And they actually dressed up, did the festivities, did like the elders come together and pray to the bullocks, and then played with it. Now this was their way of connecting what we were also discussing in one of the sessions, Mokopuna, Roha, how they connected their ancestors, the present, how they understood culture for themselves, and the Mokopunas, the kids in the, and that was art for them, art as a way of caring. And finally, I think in this story, art has been reimagined again and again, but it has always been a way of caring. And it may have been a way to listen to the unsaid, to what was happening with water, with labor, to be creating caring commons in COVID times, or to be the inner introspection where the girls find their relationship with culture and identity and nature, or to then transform that into building deeper relations between the upcoming generations, nature and culture. Or finally, I would say to bring joy, to have your hands in paint, water, mud, and that changes something in you. And that's their experience of satisfaction, happiness, more happiness, I would say. So I think that's the journey that with them, I think I was sitting in the back seat, and as they were driving it, we all had together. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Swarnima. And I should have also said, the artwork from the project Swarnima has just documented is the basis of our beautiful agenda we have this afternoon. And Deanna did the design. And Deanna did the design work. Very creative ladies, and very, very smart artwork as well. Thank you. Our last speaker is Dr. Bex Graham. Bex is a community psychologist with interests in issues relating to poverty, health and disability in particular, but I probably could add more to that as well. I think you've lots of different interests to Bex. She's a teaching fellow at the University of Waikato, and here in a position as National Chief Executive Officer of Parents of Vision Impaired New Zealand. And Bex will talk to us using Substack for communication and action. Thank you, Bex.
Oh, kia ora koutou. It's nice to see you all. It's always a bit nerve-wracking being up front. There's that temptation to just rush through your words real quick so you can sit back down again. Kelly asked me to talk about my Substack in relation, but before I get to that, I'm going to go around the mountain a little bit. So I live in Hamilton with my husband and our 4 children. Our eldest is 24 and my youngest is 12. Good range, solid teenagers. Eat so much food. Oh, my food. I undertook my PhD in social psychology through Massey, the Albany campus, and looked at food insecurity, in particular what happens in households where there's not enough money to buy enough food to feed everybody in the house, and what happens, and very qualitative, lots of just getting to know people because of the shame and the stigma that's around not having enough money for food. And it takes a little while of of getting to know someone and developing that relationship, for them to, your participants, to feel like they can talk openly and honestly about actually what's going on inside the household. So that notion of developing a caring relationship as part of research. Post-PhD, I spent a lot of time on Twitter trying to get my, these ideas out there in the world, which is how I met Kelly and Sharon and several other academics who also had that same interest and same bent. And at that time, Twitter was a really lovely space for New Zealand connection and community. It isn't anymore. And most of us left Twitter. And that left a void, like, what do I do with all these thoughts that I have? What do I do with these ideas in my head? At the same time, I wasn't able to get any sort of academic lecturing type roles, and the job at Parents of Vision Impaired came up. And my 12-year-old was born with a visual impairment, and Parents of Vision Impaired were the organisation that provided us with care that came alongside. The other organisations in the sector at the time said, oh, we can't help you, she's not blind, so we can't give you any help. So, okay, well, I don't know anything about this. And the current National Executive Officer retired, and there was a vacancy, and I'd just completed my community psychology training and internship and registration, so it was a great place to step into. In terms of the work I do, being a community psychologist, that academic background, there was still that need of, what do I do? What do I do with this stuff? How do I talk about this stuff? Being someone who's not disabled but working in the disability sector, that sense of, how do I elevate the voices of adult disabled persons? How do I honour what they've produced and the work they've done and the advocacy they've done, so that I can stand in this place and continue the work for my child? And Substack started becoming a thing. And so I was like, oh, well, let's give it a go. Let's give it a whirl. And what has really surprised me is that, on the one hand, it's felt really frivolous to have time to write. It felt like a little frivolous hobby that I was incredibly privileged to be able to put my thoughts onto the internet and send it out and have people read it. On the other hand, there is that sense of being seen. And a lot of the feedback I get is, thank you for seeing us. Thank you for talking about this. Thank you for making me feel less alone. And particularly, social issues are not a fun topic to write about. Like, there's not people queuing up at my door saying, oh yes, please tell us more about your take on our heavy social issues. But there's still a thirst and a need there for intelligent, reasonable critique, for someone who can take the ideas of the day and think about it a little more deeply than the clickbaity stuff that often gets produced. One of my most popular posts was when I was talking about the CUNT word and the way in which that had been used by white women in positions of power to justify their cruelty to the working class, and unpicking that nuance. And Bell Hooks says it brilliantly: the rage of the oppressed is never the same as the rage of the privileged. And thinking about, how do I take this rage that I feel because of the oppression that I see and the oppression that families I know experience, and particularly in the disability sector, a lot of that is unseen, and a lot of that people don't really pay attention to. And so it's like, how do I take that and elevate these stories and these voices? And that really interesting notion about civility, and this idea that we have to be civil to one another, that we can't possibly be rude to each other, and we can't possibly use swear words because that is uncivil, while ignoring the whole elephant in the room of the way in which power and whiteness and oppression stomps all over people. So for me, this was just one way to push into that and my headings have disappeared. Oh well, they weren't important. But while on the one hand it does feel like a frivolous little hobby, on the other there's actually a real need for that kind of intelligent, thoughtful critique. And I've shared this graph because often when we start something, there's just one person, there's 2 people, there's 10 people, there's not very many. And you can see there that very long, before it starts to decline, of me writing and putting things out there, and, a handful of people would read it. But it climbs. And I think I really wanted to encourage people who are thinking about this sort of thing, about what can I do, or what can I share, or is there a space for me to share what I think, is just keep doing it. Keep doing it. And even if there's only 5 people who value what you do, those 5 people matter. And sometimes what's important is those 5 people feel seen, and they feel like somebody else cares about what's happening with them. It's all right. My slides haven't kept their. When you translate slides into a new format and it's taken on the source format, not my original format. So, Katie Pie. It happens. So, thinking about, caring economies, thinking about particularly what was said this morning by Professor Tronto, and she had some really, really great nuggets in there, particularly, in terms of being a community psychologist, this idea of promoting flourishing. And so, as Georgie said, sometimes it feels like everything is awful, and that can be really overwhelming. So when writing, thinking about what are the things that people can do, not just this sucks, but actually what can people do about it? What are the actions people can undertake? Is it writing to an MP? Is it signing a petition? Is it just posting about it on social media? Sometimes those little things are important. There might be bigger things as well. And thinking about as well that when it comes to things like human rights, that there is a lot of work to do to explain what that means. That what does a human rights framework look like in practice, unpacking that. Sometimes it feels like I sort of repeat myself endlessly, but some of that too is that these are ideas that haven't really embedded into our society yet, that we're still, trying to communicate the idea in the disability sector, for example, the refrain, nothing about us without us, has been around for a number of decades. And that refrain, nothing about us without us, was a way of saying that you cannot make decisions about disabled people and disability without including disabled people and those in the sector. And Professor Tronto didn't use those words, but she talked about democracy and participation and working together. And as someone who is non-disabled working in the sector, that refrain, nothing about us without us, how do I work alongside? And the same in terms of the work I do with being tangata tiriti and working with Māori. My organisation works quite a bit with kāpō Māori Aotearoa, so thinking about how do we, again, work together to support each other, to elevate each other's voices so that we're working with. And some practical ideas there, just to end with. These were the advice. Lots of people like to give advice. And the best advice I got was post regularly. So I can't post daily, but I can post weekly. So, carving out time, which none of us have, but finding some time in that busyness to just sit down and distill thoughts. And that's really helpful for me. It's care for me to give myself time to clear my thoughts and get it out and put it in order and send it out to the world. My inner perfectionism means that sometimes my posts sit in draft for too long. So it's been very good for me to, remind myself, post your imperfect posts. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be, have it all together. If you're on social media, linking your profiles, and the more lefty media we have, the better. So get onto it. But also that whole challenge of under consumerism and capitalism, there is limited ethics in terms of our consumption. Substack isn't perfect. There's some real negative things about Substack. I don't like it. This is the platform that I have available to me. I don't have any other platforms. I don't think Facebook is any better. So, sometimes it's about what is feasible and possible and what can you live with. I only have a small wee audience. It's very niche. That's sort of a very broad brush thing, and there's contact details if you want to get hold of me. Kia ora. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bex. Really interesting to hear your engagement with Substack. I'm sure there's lots of questions. We have time. I'll just double check my time. We have time. We have till... We have half an hour. Did I read that correctly? I thought my maths wouldn't be good. I thought my maths were off. So we've lots of time for conversation. Yeah. We just circled around. Everyone's up again for another round. I'll open to the floor for any questions or thoughts, comments, words of encouragement, or... Yep.
Question just for Amy. Sorry if I haven't put your name exactly correct.
For Swarnima, is it?
Swarnima,
yep.
In your work with the woman, how did the elders react to this other way of expression and even changing culture from what they were used to?
I think initially when they started painting during COVID, it was quite bizarre. Why are you doing this? It's because there's no productive, this is not productive, or this is not taking you anywhere. But eventually, when it started to transform into something that was more internal, and they could see it, that's more internal, and when they started to see that there's some kind of conscious awareness that they're building towards their culture, they started getting interested. And the school is something that they have set up, the Open Learning Centre is something that they have set up with the community and with their guidance, help and involvement. So they're, for the Open Learning Centre, definitely they're quite happy and have their blessings for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Swarnima. Thank you for that question. Any other comments or thoughts anyone would like to share? I've got the ball rolling. Kelly's got the mic.
Doesn't have to be on topic. Questions fine.
Yeah. I was wondering with Substack, but I don't know anything about Substack, unfortunately, Bex, but you don't have a comment section, because that can be just open slather.
I have a comment section, but I moderate it.
Okay.
So I have a very particular sense that even on my own social media, that's my social media, that's my whare. You're coming in to my whare when you comment on my posts. And I don't have to tolerate bad behaviour. I'm not going to. I don't subscribe to this point of view that everybody should get to have a say in my whare. Because when I'm at home with my family, randoms don't get to come into my house, and they certainly don't get to be abusive to me. So why should that be any different on social media? Definitely love a bit of robust discussion, and I think people are more than capable of discussing ideas and disagreeing in a way that is robust but not denigratory. And I don't see why anyone should have to tolerate people being abusive, unkind, thoughtless, racist, bigoted, or anything on their page. So
Do you get a bit? Do you get a bit of negative stuff?
Twitter, yes. Twitter. I have a slide in one of my presentations and I put it up and I just click it and there's just like a whole raft of things people used to say to me on Twitter, which I find hilarious. Like, you know, I got my PhD on the back of a Wheat Bix packet, or I got my PhD in crapola, or on one of those something or other left wings with a beta cuck for a hubby. I'm like,
What does that even mean?
you know, so yes on Twitter, which is partly why I left Twitter, because you can tolerate a certain amount of it, but once it got taken over by Elon Musk, the abuse shot up astronomically, and I just thought, this is really unpleasant. I'm not coming on here to have this every day.
And just following up, I was thinking, Bex, of Joan's comment this morning that we should close off that response, application on those social media posts, that you just get to say your thing, you have your voice, your opinion, and that's it. You don't have the to and fro in terms of commentary. I wonder what you thought of as a thought experiment.
I mean, something I do for me personally, because it's so easy to get sucked in to it. Like if there's a social post and I comment, I never respond to any comments under my comment, because it's so easy to get sucked into pointless arguments. It takes my time, it takes my energy, it changes nothing. I've said what I said, that's that. In terms of allowing commentary, it depends. Like sometimes you know someone and they're genuinely asking, and sometimes it's someone you've never met and you're like, oh, that's starting to feel a bit weird. So, I mean, but yeah, if someone comes and outright, I'm just like, no, I'm banning you. I don't want to listen to you. Bye.
Wonderful. Any other comments or thoughts? Oops. Did a hand go up there? Oh, kia ora.
Kia ora. Got a question for Deanna and Swarnima about art. And I was just sort of wondering about, because I think you're both nearing the end of your PhD study, is that right?
In the middle.
Kind of, in the middle. So maybe you could both answer this question a little bit. I was wondering, what part will art play in your future practice or in your future sort of career?
I think in terms of how the collective Chinhari is functioning, art continues to play an important role. They still paint as art as something that helps them release something. And it's interesting that all the paintings that they do is sold out and the money is used for the collective. So it's the process that's important for them and not the product. I think for me, it's a similar thing. I have, in my personal journey, every time I've had a crisis in life, I have responded to it with different kind of art forms. Sometimes dance, sometimes music, sometimes theatre, and sometimes painting. And now I think I'm slowly going into yoga. So I don't know where it will take me, but I do want to say that it plays an important role in terms of understanding the process for me. Maybe I'll not paint, but I'll keep the process very close to my heart. Yeah.
Hello. It's a great question, because I've been actually asking myself, because I only started art for my PhD. And I realised I really, really liked it. But it is very much for me, when I'm in the flow, I'm in a particular feeling or emotional experience, then it can come out. So it'll definitely be a part. Like as a part of the project with Ash, we're bringing in like visual methodologies and things like that, and I definitely want to keep using it, because for me it was such a powerful way to express and understand myself. And I'm just like, man, if this did this for me, would be great if it could do that for others as well. And it's not so, I mean, it's definitely interesting, I guess, getting the data from it. It's interesting what it says or tells you about someone and their experience, but the release that comes with the expression, if you can have research that is also healing for those that are speaking with you, where when you see them walk away and they look lighter for it, then that for me is amazing and probably the most important part. So it was really long, but yes, art would probably, I see it playing a role of being a tool for healing more than collecting data. Yeah. Okay.
I'll jump in with a question for Georgie then. You talked a lot about communicating with values, but you also, with We All, I feel like are quite strategic with like sort of comms planning. You know, when you have a report come out or you've done a piece of work, and I know this is part of your responsibility in your role, I'm always really impressed with, I mean, I see it through multiple channels. Obviously, I'm interested in Wellbeing and Economies, so I'm your target audience, but it's working. Do you want to say something about that side of it, as well as what you're communicating, but how you use different media to communicate?
Yeah, nice. I'm really glad it feels like it seems like from the outside that it's strategic and like thought through, because we do. And I think, so Gareth Hughes is our director, and he's a really strategic thinker, I think. And the team is amazing. Like the work ethic of everyone involved and the volunteers, incredible. That's great. But I do think we still are kind of battling with that, being really responsive and it's a tough kind of cycle to be in, hey, when you're trying to like market things and promote things or respond to things and get things into the media or whatever. But I think it's just like using the different social media applications that are out. So we're really big on like LinkedIn, and we've kind of started a little bit of Instagram and Facebook and stuff. We've got Pānui, but actually I don't think anyone should be spending much time on these platforms. I think they're really damaging, actually. Like, I think Substack's one of the best ones. It's my job, and but I have a real existential kind of relationship with it, because it's like, should we be trying to get people to spend more time on these platforms? No, we should be bringing people together, because this is where actually we will make the connections that will empower us to go forward. So we are also really strategic, actually, in so I didn't have it on our slide, but like one of our theories of part of our theory of change is amplifying or creating new knowledge and policies, amplifying these kind of narratives of hope, but also connecting people and bringing people together. So we have like kind of as much as we can in-person events around the country, so like casual kind of drinks and stuff like that, but also a regular, it's still online, but it's a bit more interactive, like webinars and stuff like that, where people can learn about, there's like an introductory one, which is Wellbeing Economy 101, and then if maybe you come along to a couple of those, and then there's a kind of like a supporters call, and people can really, like, there's an opportunity for them to also say what they are working on and what they might need or want, or, there's like these connections that really come from there. And I think that that's what's really cool about We All, rather than that's the part that I really like about the job, rather than I've lost a bit of the love for the social media side. Yeah.
But it seems like you use it mainly for communicating that an event is happening, or that a report, like something else, it's pointing to something else rather than being the thing that you're trying to get people to look at.
Yeah, to begin with, we were like, there's a real appetite for people to, like, we want to use it in an educational way. And then I just kind of feel like the more time I spend on, say, Instagram, it's like this, I think you call it like context collapse. Like maybe you see something cool that's informing you about a different economic perspective or whatever, but then the next thing you see is genocide. Next thing you see is buy something. Next thing you see is your friend on holiday. Next thing, it's like, how is anyone meant to actually hold that in their minds in a healthy way and then move on from it? So yeah, I think maybe they need a new comms person because I can't. No. There is still a place for it, but it's. I think this is the magic. Is when people are in the room. Yeah. Do you want to say anything? But also actually Substack is a cool one because I think it's a bit slower. Like I would think that we might move into doing more like a podcast or a Substack or something like that because you are not just moving on so quickly and giving yourself, I think, brain damage. Like you can actually, I mean it. Like I think it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so Substack is a newsletter-based thing where essentially you're writing a newsletter that then gets sent out via email. They have an app and stuff as well, which is fine. But the idea is that it's more long form rather than social media per se. And the same with podcasts. It's a more long form. So you're sitting with the topic, you're thinking about the topic. When I read other people's work, it's not like reading a social media post because there's more words, but also there's more thought into it. It's quite a thoughtful place. And I enjoy the range of art. Like there's some very artistic people who write creatively and beautifully, and it's refreshing to read that kind of creative energy.
Also I think like on Substack, but also podcasts, my experience of it is you kind of feel like you're more in a relation, like there's more a relational thing going on, and even though maybe it's like parasocial relationship, like I've got that with a few of my favourite podcasters, but you know, at least anyone listen to Maintenance Space? Yeah. Like I really feel like I know them, but it has changed how I think, and I think I have it has actually I've taken action from it rather than just consumed it. Yeah.
Oh, I answered the question over here.
Just wondering if you come across Blue Sky, or that maybe there might be an alternative.
Yeah, we do have a Blue Sky. We have a Blue Sky account. And I think we've posted 3 things, and then but it is hear great things. I think is it better for individuals rather than. I think it's where what I hear is where the lefties are hanging out, or is that right? Yeah, which is cool. Yeah, we haven't put heaps of effort into it. Yeah, thanks. Are you on it? Do you like it?
I feel like this is the big social media show. I'm on Blue Sky. It's fine. It's social media. It's fine. I'm not. I don't know. You can spend a lot of time and energy, and there's no. You're not changing anything. You're not creating anything. You're not building towards anything. You're not generating community. You're not. So it's sort of it's a fun thing to dip into, but. I'm really conscious now around what do I want to be doing with my time and my energy, and what do I want to be building, and what do I want to be creating, and there's fun times to be had, but I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old.
Not mutually exclusive. Anyone else? Can I ask another one? Sorry, Ash. I've got the
If you
microphone.
must, Kelly. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the reasons we were thinking to have this panel was that, this is an event that includes people doing research and academics, and then people doing on-the-ground community work and care work in both. And maybe I'm getting old, but I feel tired of journal articles. And it's just refreshing to hear the different ways that you guys communicate what you do. So maybe if anyone has any comments on that kind of research communication interface, including art, including newsletters.
I think we should all answer that. Yes. But I'm holding the mic, so I think that's actually a really good point, because as much as I still write journal articles and do research and do the academic side of things, it's not terribly well read. Like, you've got your nerds like me who are into that stuff, and it's great. But actually, a lot of people are really interested in these ideas, and they're behind a paywall for most of the population outside of academia. And so things outside of journal articles are a really good way to get the ideas out to beyond.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is some of our kind of like approaches or the things that we're strategically trying to focus on. So there's like community wealth building and amplifying Māori approaches. And hi, Jack. Jack was one of the authors of a report that was the lead author was Matthew Scobie recently around amplifying Māori approaches to the economy. So part of it is also amplifying like the great work that's been done and the great research. So this, I guess, is like an invitation. If you have research that you think is, because we need to make it feel tangible and like a better world is possible, there is an alternative. And so let's amplify where that is already being done in Aotearoa. So if, like email me your research and see what we can do. Yeah.
Hi. I feel like I have to say hi every time I get this. I think, again, definitely something I've been thinking about, the different ways to get research out there. For me, it's definitely about how do I get it back to my people, how do I get back to the people, especially because it is their stories, but they also want to know that there are others who have had these experiences, and then in that way can it create the safety for them to be like, oh, okay, maybe I can actually start expressing it as well. And so in art, there's just so many different ways. I've been thinking about like exhibitions, free exhibitions. I've been thinking about taking exhibitions around marae. And that would be quite a cool way, I think, to like connect. And it's actually going back to them and bringing them together. These are just all the ideas I've been thinking about, so I don't know if it's particularly helpful. Yeah. So if anyone wants to take it, go for it. Getting out there. I mean, there's things like story maps as well, which are really cool. I haven't actually done it, but I've seen it, and it looks pretty cool. Just trying to figure out, how do I actually get what I'm doing to the people? But then in the same thing, you can also take that sort of dissemination and still take it to academics. I think it's a great way to get them to move from intellectualizing it into actually feeling it. So they can work for both. It's just, how you deliver it. It might just be different wording, but it's just, there's so many different ways to communicate beyond a journal article. And how do I do that? How do I get to the people? But then how do I get it to the hearts? So, peace out.
I think much of what I wanted to say has been said. But a couple of things that I think the Chanari is doing is they bring out newsletters, and that's been an interesting way of getting their art and how they connect with their art out, not only to the research community, but also to their own community in their village. And their mothers would be very proud. Oh, you've come! See this? That's what my girls are doing. So that's one thing. And the other has been they've done short films, very unprofessional, not knowing how to make films, just taking up some AI tools to bring images and videos together. But I think that was still a way of passing on what they were doing and how they were, how they have also researched it. And when everyone was speaking, I was thinking of exhibition, and that's a wonderful idea. I think I want to take it back to them. That's just from my side.
Sure.
Kia ora, everyone. Actually, I'll just stand up because I don't like having my back to people. Just to give a little bit of a plug for community research, because we are actually a platform for researchers to share their research, and we are open access. So if you've got research that you want disseminated out to the community, just get in touch with us. And we do collaborate with other organisations, so we could put together a special collection around Economies. We've been talking about doing a special collection on art and design for social change. So, and Bev's had some experience in that space before. So, we're here to support the community. So, get in touch, and we'll be around at afternoon tea.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry sorry that I didn't think about plugging you guys in. I was nervous, so like, it's like actually an incredible organisation that's already doing all of that.
Thanks, Kelly. Kia ora, everyone. I just wondered if it's probably a request for the organisers whether, with people's permission, we could get our institutional affiliations and names. So, like, I heard your request and I thought I wouldn't know what your email address is or how to contact you, but I'd love to. So I wonder if there's a way of gathering together some of our contacts to help us keep connecting after today.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't want their email shared, please get in touch, reply to one of the emails Dana's sent out, and then Dana and I can do a follow-up email afterwards and share a spreadsheet just with names, institutions and email addresses on there. But do get in touch if you don't want to be on that. Yep. Thanks, David. Great idea.
Great idea. I was just last, probably with time following up on that. Often we think contributing to policy making or policymakers is the way to go, and it hasn't really come through as a more radical sort of way of making change. I know from looking at some of the commentary on social media that people feel increasingly disengaged from those processes of making submissions and, you know, trying to get these organisational meetings and getting nowhere. And, you know, people have had long-standing relationships with ministries of different sorts, just really not getting any traction, feeling really disillusioned. I wondered if that's part of the sphere of work that you do, especially Georgie and Bex, or whether it's just your focus is primarily on the public, making that sort of more radical change, and actually that's more of a backdrop that's not worth your energy sometimes to engage with.
We have an ongoing project. It's kind of called like Blueprint for Prosperity or something like that, which is like, you know, what are the policy changes that we would want to see, and if we had a kind of opportunity like we did 40 years ago with, like, you know, the birth of neoliberalism in New Zealand, like, you know, there was just like a paper that was handed to Roger Douglas, like, here it is, like, here's the economic system that you'll, you know. And so we kind of we're doing that, but equally I think, like, I first met Bex when I was working at Child Poverty Action Group, and we published a paper of yours about food security, but you were also more involved. And like from my experience, what we've kind of seen is there is a bit of a disillusionment within the kind of that sector where we're, you know, the whole kind of systems change focus was on just trying to get policy changes across, because what we've seen is, yeah, you get it across and then it's just full, like it's just ripped out. And so, yeah, definitely as an organisation, we are focused on trying to change the broad conditions that underpin it so that you know, it won't be appropriate or acceptable to make those kinds of, yeah. But, yeah, those are my very high-level thoughts.
There's a couple of things there sitting in there. One is knowing what the levers are that you can jump on to push change. And so in terms of the disability sector, the signing of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or the UNCRPD, has been a really significant lever for change, because every 8 to 10 years there's an international monitoring mechanism which looks at how well is New Zealand doing as a government level of implementing these ideas about human rights for disabled people. And there's a very clear reporting process. And then the UN comes back and says, this is what you're doing well, but these are the things you need to do better on. So that is a long, slow process. It requires a great deal of perseverance and a willingness to sit in very boring meetings. Very boring meetings. Oh, my goodness. And I think that is what people misunderstand sometimes about this policy work at that level, or at the legislation level, a lot, and at local council level. It's sitting in long, boring meetings. It's sitting through an AGM and voting appropriately. It's paying attention and being aware, and it's not fun, and it's not exciting, and it's not particularly social media friendly. But that's a really important work, and that is something that the right wing, particularly the ACT-leaning right wing, are very, very good at doing. They are very good at sitting through these meetings and at using these levers and pushing these changes through. And on the broad left, I mean, it's not as much fun sitting in an AGM as it is going on a protest.
Well, you're not getting paid to do it. Like,
I'm not getting paid to do any of it.
Yeah, but they've actually got, if you've got the funds, you can pay people to go to these meetings and you can pay people to sit through them and stuff.
Yeah. So,
Like
yeah.
lobbyists or whatever,
Yeah.
they've got them.
yeah. So the activism is a lot more fun and it feels like you're doing something. But the reality is that if your activism doesn't include some real background, boring policy-making work, legislation work, submitting its select committees work, it just stays at that level of activism. Does that make sense? Yeah. So...
But I add something. I actually forgot that we've got a campaign for a piece of legislation, which is a Future Generations Act for Aotearoa New Zealand, or it could look something. We've got a discussion document that is out at the moment. The campaign's called Tomorrow Together. It's like rangatahi led. It's quite amazing, and the idea could be Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, but it could be something else. But essentially, like the way that I kind of describe it's the opposite of like the regulatory standards bill. It's kind of like a meta legislation that would mean that any other piece of legislation that comes through would have to be judged by, what is this going to do for future generations, 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is. And so obviously it's really grounded in this kind of, intergenerational te ao Māori perspective. And that feels really cool. That feels cool. But that's a meta piece of legislation. It's not, we do our fair share of these select committee presentations too, yeah.
Can I ask one question of the panel? Sorry. Do you use platforms like Action Station and some of these other ones who actually set themselves up like an umbrella organisation that various people can put up the various types of projects they'd want to? And the other thing is, as it is difficult to get traction with the politicians, are you able to interact with either the policy people who do the research actually in the government departments or some of the CEs or deputy CEs that don't always have to follow literally what the minister is directing, because they can put up alternative views even if he doesn't take notice of them, but they can still implement things through their own regulatory framework?
Yes, I've done a lot of work with Action Station actually, and would you have too? But through Child Poverty Action Group, we're actually funded to work together with them because we had this amazing philanthropic guy who saw that. So CPAG is a research organisation, and Action Station's regular messaging and connecting people and stuff. So a long connection with Action Station, which is really amazing, and we're part of the Fairer Futures kind of ropu with them, which is great. We don't really do. Wheel hasn't really done any petitions and stuff, but they're a really great kind of connecting organisation, I would say. Actually, we're funded by the same people, the Peter McKenzie project as well. So really grateful to work with them a lot. And then what was the second part of the question about?
Engaging with the actual people who do the work.
Yeah.
The ministries and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We're having a lot of where we're trying to build connections in local government at the moment, because so many cool people working in local government who understand what's going on, in their communities. So we have a local government kind of official and staff network, which has really taken off, and that's been really great. And then I would say we're also trying to build connections, and we have deep connections with people working in the constitutional transformation space, because I think a really big issue obviously is that, and I saw it so much when I was maybe even vexatiously OAAing Louise Upston, every cabinet paper, everything I want, because what you see they get all of this official advice and then they just, I'm going to do it anyway. And it's how can we, this is so wrong, how much the big problem, I think, is the executive branch is too much power. I think it's going back to that systems change thing of we need constitutional transformation to change that, because these guys just do whatever they want.
which is not a very empowering message to end on, but we can change it.
That's right, I've got an empowering message. So I didn't talk about it, but one of my roles is I'm the co-chair for Access Matters Aotearoa, and the whole focus of Access Matters Aotearoa is to get an Accessibility Act for Aotearoa across the board. And Operations Manager is very, very good at talking to everyone across the political spectrum. And she's, I don't know how she does it. No, Diane. Diane is the operations manager. And Diane is able to be in a room with ACT and get them on board. She's able to be in a room with national MPs and get them on board. She is incredibly capable of articulating why accessibility legislation matters in words and values and language that people from ACT and National understand and New Zealand First understand as much as Greens, Labour and the Māori Party. And that ability to sit in a room with someone and find a common value and articulate why this legislation matters and why it would be good and why it would be a win for this government and follow that through is very powerful. And then on the other side, we've got Juliana and Kimberly who run the Kōrero for Change. So it's that dual arm of the activism, the public-facing stuff, the conversations, the generating excitement and interest and that public push for it, while also having somebody who's really good at that policy legislation side of things, who can draft get a draft bill thing. Get that drafted and then get it to people in power and have them be really enthusiastic about it and really keen about it. And I'm more on that activism out there with placards more than I am actually able to do that other side. But it's working together.
Yeah. Can I give you just some real positive feedback on Access Matters? So and Diane and Juliana. So they're great at having meetings not with like only political parties but with people in the community as well. Because we had a webinar. It was about a launch for our policy for public good, which I think Kelly was involved in, and maybe some other people in the room. Afterwards, or not beforehand, they were like, "Is there going to be?" They had like some quite. I think we felt slightly challenged by the questions like, is there going to be a sign language interpreter available? And we were like, oh shit, we didn't actually think about it. And it was like a little bit embarrassing. Oh man. And so then we had quite a lovely, a very warm meeting with them. It was like, yeah, no, just thank you for raising that with us. Here is what we can do differently next time. And so next time it's just like, it's really easy to say, if you're having a, in-person event, like, what are your dietary requirements? Do you have any access requirements? Like, oh, so simple. And they did it so, we were challenged, but we didn't feel like ashamed or, it was just really cool. It was great. They're great at having those conversations with people. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're just about at afternoon tea time. There's still lovely sun in the sky. We'll go out and stretch your legs. Can you please join me in thanking the wonderful presenters this afternoon? We'll reconvene in about 30 minutes, so please go and enjoy some afternoon tea. Thank you.